Welcome everyone to the Decisions webinar on building an RFP chatbot with AI using your old RFPs. And in reality, this is kind of the creation of a Q&A app. So question, answer, pair. This refers to RFPs. It refers to security questionnaires. And for us, we get questionnaires from analyst firms that we have to answer. But equally, it could be just a technical question that anyone in the organization wants to ask. So the actual use case itself can be bigger, but it also has great context around RFPs. And with me, so I'm Gordon Jones, Chief Operating Officer at Decisions, and two of my colleagues, my esteemed colleagues, are joining me today. Venetia is a Senior Sales Engineer at Decisions, and Tyler leads our sales engineering team. And Venetia will be walking through the details of the demo today, and Tyler will be providing color commentary along with myself. But first, plugging a couple of other events. We call our training sessions Submerse, and it's a 3-day kind of deep, intensive training. We have a beginner program. We have kind of the master class. It runs 3 days in November in Dallas, Texas. Please sign up on our website. If you're unfamiliar with Decisions or you're a pro, everybody learns something when they come. So by all means, join us at that training event. We've also got some upcoming webinars and events. Next month, we have another webinar to talk about transforming employee manuals, call it instruction manuals, SOPs, into chatbots. It'll be somewhat similar to today's webinar, but with a different twist. There's a little bit of some nuances to that. If you happen to speak Portuguese or are down in Brazil, we have a webinar coming up with a new partner, and that is in CADS in Brazil. That'll be on the 19th of October. And we'll also be next month at the Gartner IT Symposium in Orlando, Florida, October 16th to 19th. You'll find us at booth 132, and Tyler and myself will be there along with a couple other colleagues, and we look forward to talking with you there. And I never remember what ICYMI means. I think it's in case you missed it. Yeah, that's right. So we have a whole series of webinars that we've done on not only on AI-related webinars, but all kinds of webinars on other functionality within our platform. They can all be found at decisions.com/videos. If you scroll down a little bit, there's a whole slew of them. We did a webinar on automating invoices, so pulling information out of PDF documents. We did another webinar using transcripts from meetings like this and all the different things you can do with that. Taking unstructured data in an Excel spreadsheet, using AI to clean it up, and building a no-code chatbot. So we took data from Salesforce and basically turned it into a chatbot. So a lot of cool webinars that you can find there. Again, decisions.com/videos. We have a new AI white paper. Again, you can find that on our website. We have an AI orchestration. If you look at the solutions tab at the top, you can quickly find this AI white paper. Okay, and throughout today, if you have any questions, by all means, drop it in the Q&A or in the chat. We'll either answer as we go, or for sure, we'll get them at the end of the webinar. We'd love for this to be interactive, so by all means, if you have questions, ask them. So I'm going to do a brief intro to Decisions. If you're unfamiliar with who we are and what we do, I'm going to give a little bit of context to generative AI and how we believe it can deliver value. And a key to today's webinar is understanding this bit about vector databases and embeddings. And this kind of will give the context to how it works. Then just a quick intro into what you're going to see. And then I'm going to turn it over to Venetia, who's going to take it through the nuts and bolts. First, she's going to show kind of the end user application, and then she's going to switch gears and show you how it was all built on the Decisions platform. So with that, I'll begin. So what is Decisions? We're a rules-driven, no-code software development platform. And there's three typical use cases that our clients use us for. The first is I'll call it a pure rules engine or a decisioning application. And the whole idea here is think medical claims, think insurance underwriting, think loan origination. These are very rule-heavy applications. Sometimes it can run into the hundreds, thousands of rules. And the idea here is to take those rules out of custom code, out of stored procedures and databases, and put them into a graphical interface that can be easily understood by the people who know those rules. So your subject matter experts can edit, maintain, if not create the rules themselves using a graphical interface. Another common use case for us is to sit beside these large applications like SAP, Salesforce, NetSuite, loan origination systems, loan management systems, and manage, I'll call it special cases, special pricing, special packaging, and it allows clients to move these special cases out of these systems so that you're not continuously customizing your SAP, making it difficult to upgrade your SAP system. So we do an excellent job managing complexity alongside and between these various applications, which takes us to this next use case, and that's sitting between and amongst various software applications and services and doing automation and engaging end users when necessary. So the example today will involve calls back and forth to ChatGPT. Internally, we have a lot of automation where we use our platform between Salesforce, ChatGPT, between our CRM system, our accounting system. So the typical large organization, large enterprise organization, uses over 900 software applications, and but the business processes always cross between these various applications, and that's where Decisions lives, to automate and orchestrate between these various software systems. To learn more, I'd highly encourage you to get on our website, schedule a demo with someone like Venetia, who will walk you through the platform. She'll do a quick build from scratch to show you how easy it is to use these graphical designers to build complex software quickly. I mentioned the others. You can find it all on our website at decisions.com. All right, that's the quick Decisions overview. Again, if you haven't seen the platform, please sign up for a demo online. You've all been reading the news. What's interesting is Gartner just came out with their hype cycle, and generative AI is right at the top. So meaning it's at the peak of expectations and what's about to happen. And you can already see the articles about how bad it is at this or that, or how it hallucinates. But what typically happens with a new technology is there's a lot of hype, then there's this trough of disillusionment, but then over time you end up utilizing these tools and technologies and getting usage out of them. So here we are, we're at the top. What you hear a lot about is, how it's transformative, how there'll be new businesses. And you also hear a lot about articles about the risks. But what we're going to be talking about today is is this area of in cost and productivity, where it's almost a general purpose productivity or automation tool. And I think you'll see that today. Um, we can definitely help improve worker augmentation, providing them information at their fingertips. And the example that you're going to see today, this RFP, for us as a software company, we fill out a number of these every month. They're very time consuming. Historically, we had somebody filling each one out individually. Yes, we've answered similar questions before, and they're all stored in a Google folder, but to find it and find the question takes about as long as it does to type it up again. So what's cool about this application you're going to see today is that once you answer that question very well one time, you can save it and then search for it and quickly find that perfect answer. So as in those other webinars that I mentioned that we've run and the other use cases like invoice automation, like creating chatbots from your data, there's this technology provides the means of providing automation that just wasn't possible before. And the decisions platform is ideally suited to orchestrate and automate calls back and forth to these large language models. And what we've learned over the last several months is if you narrow the task and make multiple calls, the accuracy is incredible. It can structure the data for you. And the other thing that our platform provides is a validation and audit trail. So with the rule engine, with the capabilities within decisions, you can save every call that you've made and what the result was and what came back. You can run it through an approval process just like you would anything else. So we provide an ideal platform for incorporating AI, but putting boundaries and walls around it and creating an audit trail such that you can validate what's been sent back and forth. And there's always questions around security. This is all brand new. A lot of the major vendors offer enterprise security. So OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, AWS, IBM, they've all got, SOC 2, Type 2 compliance, PCI DSS, HIPAA. But by all means, we're not a law firm. So do your own research yourselves, please. Okay. With that, let me jump into just a little bit about vector databases and embeddings, because this is kind of important to understand when we move into this this question and answer and how these models handle text. A bit about vectors. So what these models all do is they take this text and they create they create this embedding, which is a series of numbers that can be very long. So I think in the case of what we're doing today, it's a vector that's got 1,536 series of numbers. So these are numbers that are stored in this vector database, right? And here, this example is kind of a 2D example. We're all familiar with X and Y and a point in XY space and how close it is to another point in XY space. If we added a Z component, which is 3 numbers, now we have a 3-dimensional space. Well, we're talking about a multi-dimensional space with 1,536 different dimensions. And so you take a sentence, you take words, these models vectorize them, create these numbers, and then you're looking for the closest fit in this multi-dimensional space to come up with an answer. That's as much as I'm going to say about it here, but that's the kind of the basics to how these things work. You take text, these models vectorize it, and they get saved in this special vector database. So that's the process. Now, what you're about to see today, there's 2 pieces to this, right? So there's one side where we're taking data And in the example today, it's a question answer pair, right? So we have a question, we have an answer. We tokenize it, and then we send it to a generative AI model, which today is ChatGPT, but in future webinars, we'll also be using the Google Vertex, and at some point, AWS. The generative AI model creates this this tokenized vector, which is called an embedding, and saves it in a vector database. So part one of the process is taking all this data, tokenizing it, running it through the model to create this embedding that's saved in a vector database. And Venetia will show you that process. So first, you're saving all the data. Then you have a user who's doing the opposite thing. He's searching this vector database, looking for that answer, right? So there's two processes here. First, how you save the data. The second process, how you search the data. And one key thing I want to point out here today is you can save the vector, and then you can also save metadata along with that, right? And that metadata can be the actual text that you embedded or that you vectorized. And the important thing there is that for data that's very important to get the right answer out of the model, this is a way to prevent the hallucination effect that we've all experienced, we've all read about, using these large language models. So that's an important thing, because what we're going to show you is a question and an answer saved in this format, and the answer that is a result of the search is going to be the actual exact text that was saved. It's not something that the model creates and returns, but the exact result. And a little bit about this text pre-processing. So we've created a step now in decisions that takes the text, we lowercase, we remove punctuations, remove URLs, numbers, remove stop words like the, and, like there's a lot of words in sentences that don't add anything to the context. So these are kind of best practices for how best to vectorize data. We've now collapsed all this into one step. And as I mentioned earlier, there's three ways to go about this. The first method is to basically train a generative AI model. So this is how ChatGPT, Google Bard, taking huge sets of data, tokenizing it, and training the model. And then you ask the model questions, right? What we're going to show you today is number two, where we've taken a question answer pair, and we've tokenized the question and saved it in a vector database, and the answer we saved as metadata, so that when someone types in a question, we want to find the closest question and return the answer that was saved as metadata. So then there's no hallucination. The model is not making up an answer, but it's actually providing you a curated answer to that question. Now, later on, we plan to test this by saving the answer and seeing if one or the other method works better. That might be a webinar for another day. But today, we're going to show you option number two. Okay, I'm going to breeze through this very quickly just to show you all, if you are a Decisions customer, we have an open AI module, which you can download as you would any other module. So it's found within the features folder of our admin view. Again, we have a lot of modules up there. Now, this one's called Open AI. You just download it, install it like another. You can open up the settings, put in your API key from OpenAI, and then you'll have all of these steps available within the toolbox as you find with all of the other decision steps. It's no code, it's drag and drop, and you can use that to build everything you see here today. Again, I won't go too deeply into the privacy and security. Needless to say, look on the website. You have to be comfortable. We will in the future have some capability that's within our walled garden that doesn't go out to an OpenAI or a Google Vertex. We're not quite there yet, but it'll be coming soon. So, all right, I've talked a lot. It's 22 after the hour. A quick setup to what you're about to see, and then I'll turn it over to Venetia. So as I mentioned earlier, there's two parts to this process. There's the first piece, which is getting the question answer pair. In our case, we have a lot of old RFPs that we filled out before. And the whole idea here is to create this question answer pair in a well-curated manner. So you want to kind of answer this question to the best of your ability once, and then in the future, it's saved, it's been checked, it's been validated, it's been through an approval process. So in our case, anybody creating a question answer pair will send it for approval. It'll go to somebody like Tyler, who's extremely knowledgeable in our platform. He would approve it, save it into a repository, and in that process, it then gets vectorized and saved, right? So we have a process, we have an audit trail, we can track who submitted, who approved that question, and it ends up in the repository. Then as a user, you get a new RFP that you want to fill out. Okay, that's another process. So we want to search for the correct answers to these questions. Now, sometimes we will find that there's an exact match to the question. Sometimes it's close, and sometimes there is no match. So in that case, what we want to show you is how to use this tool to find the question answer pair. And we create an audit trail, so we will know, okay, here's what was returned. And if there is no good pair, we have a process to create, an assignment for somebody to answer that question, and to provide that. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Venetia, to take us through the what was built-in decisions. So everything you're about to see, built-in decisions without code. Take it away, Venetia.
Thank you so much, Gordon. And if you know us or have been attending the previous webinars, you know how much we all love decisions and we love to drink our own champagne. So that's why you see everything moving forward, built-in decisions, the dashboard system, reporting, as well as analytics that keeps tracking around the process. So over here, I'll be quickly taking you through a couple of processes. The first one is the knowledge repo, where we would be just tracking all of our questions that are existing in our repository and then monitor those and update those things, as well as how to add a new set of questions can be managed. So this is the page where we centralized all of those actions, where I can quickly navigate into each one of those individual dashboards and work upon. But you can customize it as per your requirements as well. So let me just navigate into the knowledge repo. And again, as you see, we have curated it in a structured manner so that we would be able to search for all the architecture related questions, as well as we can look into those flow questions that were asked through, and we can have search categories as well as filtered based upon dates, etc., giving more information about who has submitted it and when it was approved, etc. Complete visibility into auditing and audit trail capabilities. So,
and you can also notice on the left, we've got categorized. So we have questions categorized in terms of like rules, flows. That makes sense for us with our platform and product. For your own situation, you might have different categorizations.
Exactly. Thank you, Gordon. And over here, everything in decisions is permissions based. So people who have permissions would only be able to manage those things. So for example, I would see a lot of these questions categorized as others, which I don't want to make it. So I can just come over here, maybe update a question or maybe delete a question, and all of these are permissions based upon the user. We would just check through, you can run rules, have the logic running behind the scenes, and automatically show the actions accordingly to those users. So without any further ado, let me just go ahead and submit a new question into our repository and see how this works. So over here, we have a couple of buttons which would trigger a workflow. And again, just to mention, decisions can also be called headlessly. So over here, you can see we have a beautifully built form where I can just add a quick set of questions. And these can be much customizable based upon your use cases. So for example, I'm just adding a simple question, which is how many types of rules do we have in decisions, and also pass in the response right over here. And have a tag around this just for my ease and submit this request. And there you see, this moves to the queue of my manager, Tyler, and sitting in their queue for approvals. So let me just log in and pretend to be a Tyler for now. So right over here, you can see that particular request is coming right into our inbox, and I can go ahead and approve that request from my inbox. So the use case previously you have seen can be for a bulk upload as well. So you can upload a list of questions as well as answers. So all of them can be sent for approvals, and the user can just approve all of them at once, or pick one question at a time, just the way that I'm doing right over here. Can modify these things in case if they intend to do, just can see that. And if it looks good, so I'm just gonna go ahead and click on submit. And now what happens over here is that gets moved out of my queue and gets added to the repository.
Yeah, so this is standard decisions, work queues, right? An assignment goes out. And I think this is really important because you're getting this strongly curated question and answer, right? You know, if you just upload a bunch of stuff that you have, it's the old garbage in, garbage out story. So these LLMs are no different. If you have a very well curated question and answer, you'll get good results. If you're just dumping a whole bunch of data into it without much thought, then you'll look at the answer and you'll be well, that stinks. This thing doesn't work. So again, the curation, the approval, having your experts do it, that's an important piece to this process.
And you could absolutely use a spreadsheet as a data source. So, she's showing you using the UI UX, you could use a data sheet that comes from spreadsheet or a PDF or a Word document to upload, and then be able to do that also.
Absolutely.
Let me just go ahead and show a couple of other user actions. So let's say I would like to change these others section that you see right over here into a different one. So I can just go ahead and update the repository with the right tag and classify it into rules, or maybe the right one, which is going to be under architecture, and update this. This looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and classify the tags. And what it does is it updates the repository information and moves this to the right queue. So you can have all the user actions like deleting a question in your repository, or maybe updating the old bunch of records which have been not updated for last 2 years. So you can just do all that cleaning as well. With that, let me just go ahead and submit a new RFP. That's how we would like to see bulk things getting uploaded and see how decisions workflow is going to help us in curating the answers, leveraging the AI. So over here.
We're shifting gears now, so that we've shown the process for how you populate the database, so to speak, of question and answers. Now we've gotten a new RFP from a prospect. They've sent us a list of questions. We want to upload those and see what the system returns.
So
Now, again, what you can see is Venetia's filling out a form. So this creates the audit trail we're creating, we're saving who submitted, what was submitted, when. Again, it's important when you're working with these LLMs and the AI, you want to have the audit trail of what was done so that you can go back and make sure you're not doing anything funky.
So thank you, Gordon. So right over here, you can see I'm trying to submit a new RFP with all the information coming in. So we also have the ability, let's say you have an inbox where you get these responses from your customers to fill an RFP. We can just listen to those emails and automatically pull those files sitting across and trigger these workflows as well. So everything from there can be automated. And I just submitted this particular request. And what happens behind the scenes is, as a manager, we can also have a centralized repository of all of those RFPs, which is right over here, you can see. So you can see the requests that were submitted by each of those users. You can see the AI confidence level that has been generated based upon the database that we have. How many of these are automatically generated through AI is how we are trying to calculate the score. And you can see all of those audit history capabilities right over here. And once it is approved, some of my requests are currently awaiting approvals. So Tyler still needs to approve. And I can just go ahead and view those RFPs as well as the questions and answers that were curated by the AI before he approves that, and download the file as well. More of analytics, but let me just go ahead and see what AI has actually done for me in terms of that previous request, which we just submitted. So I'm just going to go ahead and take this particular one right over here, which is due date as 30th. Right over here, review this particular one. And there we go. 1 second.
The bottom one, Venetia.
Yep.
So,
Thank
and
you,
just a
Tyler.
couple answer questions. How long it takes us to build this? It took us approximately probably 3 days to build this out. This is an end-to-end solution that we built using a no-code platform in 3 days. So we've been able to take requirements, we gather requirements from Gordon, a few members inside our organization. We gather the requirements, and then we spent 3 days with one of our employees, Venetia, working on this with our team, help from my team. So very easy, very quick, very easy to do this for decisions, to be able to use a no-code platform to build these solutions out for you. And source documents we can absolutely use. We're using Excel files. We can use Word files. We can use PDFs. We can embed links. We can, if you want to upload a video, attach a video to a question and answer, we can do that also. So we provide you a lot of flexibility there also.
Yeah,
and right over here.
Go ahead and describe what just happened, Venetia.
Thank you. So you can just see the response that we have submitted as Jessica Potter, and you can see we just tried to have 4 questions for this example. Automatically, what happened is we are trying to look into our database and automatically pre-populate the information. So for all these questions, we found a closest match, and the AI returned to us the similar matches. But for this particular question, we did not have any. So you can see we have a rules engine running behind the scenes where we are only considering 98% of the matches being displayed to the user. So anything below 98%, consider it not to be displayed so that the user can enter it manually, which can be done right the way that you can just see. So these things can be editable as well. So you can just enter the information and make it more customizable as per your requirement and click on proceed. And now once you do that, you can see the new set of questions, which we just typed in manually, was not inside the database. And now we are asking the user if they want to update this back into the repo. So I can just go ahead and click on add repo to make this getting added into the repository. And in the meantime, what happened is we just got downloaded with a file. So I can just show you an example of how that file looks. And here is the file with a set of curated questions and the answers.
Yeah, so there was a question earlier. Somebody had asked if, could you use data from Excel or some other format? And the answer is yes. So in this example, Venetia has built a way to bulk upload from an Excel file. We have, and it's certainly possible to use other file formats to help put the data into the platform.
And as you see right now, she's exported it to a simple Excel format. But if you have a curated format your company uses to answer RFPs, or the format of the RFP coming into you, we can format that also. We're just showing this very simple example for the webinar today. And if you write RFPs, you want to be able to use the AI to curate better questions to ask in your RFPs. You absolutely can do that. Use Decisions to approve those. Decisions is a SaaS platform, so we can be, we are a SaaS platform, we are GDPR compliant, SOC 2 compliant, but we also offer an on-prem solution also. So we have both of those flavors that you can use to be able to do that. So we can, be enterprise wants to be on-prem, we can be on-prem, or we can host in your private cloud or our private cloud. We are building out pre-built accelerators. Like if you are a Decisions customer, we do have pre-built accelerators, and this will probably be in our pre-built accelerator store here after this webinar. I don't know what time frame I can give you, but probably will be in there shortly.
Yeah, I think we're gonna polish this up a little more. So I think within a month we plan to have this in our app store, at least at version 1. We're already beginning to use this internally ourselves, and after we see the question answer capability, we intend to have this be kind of our knowledge repository.
So with that, we have now seen how we can import or push data into our repositories. And we also have seen how we can bulk upload information with respect to RFPs and get answers back. So let's see how we can make our worlds even more simpler. Like we might be using our internal systems or maybe chatbots where we try to communicate with our teams. For example, we use Slack on daily basis. And I like to ask all my questions inside that Slack channel. So let's see how we can leverage tools like Slack or maybe Teams, and how we can have a chatbot which would look into our repository and answer these questions that we ask over there in the Slack. So I'm not going to bore you by doing the Ask SE again from the dashboard because it's the same UI. So let me just show you on how we can do this externally. Let's just bring my Slack up here.
Yeah, so if somebody's working on an RFP, the web-based interface is probably best because you're doing lots of questions, sometimes several hundred questions. So the web-based interface is something that's easier to work with. But you can also expose this within something like Slack or Teams. And then if you just have a single question, it might be easier to use, the Slack interface, for example.
Thank you, Gordon. So over here, what I'm trying to do is I'm going to go ahead and post a question by saying that this is the bot that we have tagged for checking for all of our repository question and answering us back with the correct response or the closest matches that sits inside that repository, leveraging the vectorization. So now I'm going to go ahead and post this, tag the bot and say, do we have a test API? So I want to use this internally and just post it. Oh, okay. I have just invited them. And there we go. As you see, I have a response back saying that, yes, there is an internal publicly available website. And here is your top response. However, we are also intending to show the user the closest matches so that they can, in case if there are any similar questions where they want to know about additional functionalities of the product or maybe similar questions, they would also see the relative things.
Yeah, I think this is also important. If it finds the exact question, you'll get that 100% match. But maybe the wording was slightly different, so the closest might be 97% or 95%. Then you have to kind of look at the question answer that it serves up to see, is that the same question really, or is it different? Is the answer the same? In that case, you'll have to use your judgment, right? So the objective here is, in the example we're showing today, it's important to kind of find the exact question or the closest. But it could be the closest, but it's not really the same question. And again, as I mentioned earlier, we're vectorizing it and searching on the question and returning the exact answer that was typed. So there's no hallucination here. The model isn't making stuff up. We're returning that closest answer.
Exactly. And just for that, I purposefully changed the question. So you can see there is a slight differentiation with the question that is sitting inside the repository versus what we have asked. So it just vectorizes the question that we have asked, looks for the closest match, and gives us the closest match result as the top response.
And I'm going to answer Luke's question in the chat. He asked, how is data curated? Well, that's the question that Gordon was talking earlier about. Is it better to curate the answer first or the question first? So if you want, you can do it both ways. So we've curated both the question and answer at the same time, how we try to do it internally. But it could be that, you might have, because everybody knows RFPs, everybody asks questions a little differently. You're pretty much gonna give the same answer. So what you can do is, have 100 questions which are just slightly variant, but have one good answer, or you can have multiple different answers. That's how you want to internally process your RFPs. We've gone back and forth both ways, whether the answer might be the one way or the question might be the best way to answer. Gordon, you want to say something to that?
Yeah, I was going to say, this is all new, and I think, in a few months' time after we play with this some more, utilize it internally, I think we would share whatever best practices we've learned from this process. There's a lot of companies spending a lot to actually train the model. Now, of course, the risk there is this whole hallucination thing, right? So you get an answer, it looks right, it sounds confident in giving it, but the method that we're showing you here today kind of we're restoring the exact text that somebody has curated to that question to try to remove this risk. Now, with that said, the benefits and this technology is really cool in how it can find these closest matches. So these other semantic search techniques from the past, or using search terms, you might get lucky, you may not find it at all. This is really a much better way to search for contextual data to questions like this.
And just to add on to top of Gordon, so when we are getting the results, you can have the workflow engine as well as rules engine running behind the scenes. If the match percent is less than 95% or maybe 90%, tag the relevant team members so that you get a right answer when such questions have been asked. So that's the power of rules engine as well as workflow. So knowing whom it should be directed in case if the automation fails or if you don't have a responses accordingly.
And another point I'll make is that, the OpenAI and Google, I had read where Google was spending upwards of $1 billion this year just on content, creating good content for their models, their generative AI models to learn on. So again, I think this technology is advancing rapidly. Just even looking back at where things were 3 months ago, 4 months ago, and it'll continue to move rapidly. And we intend to keep up with it and to continue to share what we learn and best practices. But this use case here of creating a database of question answer pair that can be easily searched, very powerful.
And you can have this as an update action or maybe delete action. So just the way, so everything can be triggered from a single place, and decisions can be that orchestration layer, which just listen to that and automate things behind the scenes. So I can just add a question add to SC repo just the way that we did, add a single question from the Slack bot, or maybe delete the question, or as well update too.
Yeah, so the beauty here is you can have this, the decisions interface for doing a lot of heavy RFP work, or saving question and answer team, which can be used both for RFPs, for security questionnaires, for analyst questionnaires, as well as people within the company. And this is all information that's important to us. Every company has a data store of information that their employees need to know. Our next webinar is going to be taking all of our employee manuals, our benefits manuals, and pumping them into a chatbot. So vectorizing that data to make it easy to answer to ask and answer a specific question about data that you have internally.
And with that, I would like to take you to the back end on how this has been built and just give you a hood on how easy it is to build with decisions. So let me just take a deep dive into that upload RFP thing. And over here, you can just see what we are trying to do is upload the information. And for each of the information that comes in, we are trying to query the question back to Pinecone as well as the vectorize it, look for the information and return it back. So as Gordon has mentioned in his previous slides, so we are just stripping all of that information so that the vector is able to understand the format and then generate the response back. Similarly,
So what you're seeing is this is the decisions flow editor. We have actually several thousand steps available. There's a couple hundred that are used most frequently, and these new AI steps are in that new module I referenced. So Vanish is showing you that this is all built without using code, dragging and dropping these steps to create the logic behind everything that you've just seen.
and thank you, Gordon. Again, everything over here is permissions based. So depending upon who the user is and what permissions they have or for which projects they have access to, they would be able to navigate into those workflows and quickly curate those stuff. So initially, this would be a blank canvas, as Gordon was mentioning. So this is the steps toolbox on the left-hand section, which would give you the flexibility to just drag and drop those things into the blank canvas and connect it as per your requirements. So this is just an example of how the Ask SE works, the chatbot that you have just seen on Slack. So we are just trying to deserialize the information. And the nice thing is we don't need to build the steps. Decisions automatically tries to, you can pass the JSON and the structure can be created and there would be a step that would be quickly available, which would deserialize the information coming from that Slack. And based on that, we are querying back to our database to receive the response and see what percentage of match happens. And if the match is less than 75%, then we are trying to send back a Slack message by tagging in the right person who would be able to answer to that particular question. If not, we are just sending those responses back to the user.
Yeah, I think there's a good question here in the chat, Venetia. Someone who fills out RFPs and has submitted hundreds of them, still trying to get a grasp. He recognizes that these questions can be asked in close, similar, but not exact ways. And I think what we're showing you here is that, for example, if somebody asks the question that's just slightly different, right? What the return that you'll get back would be a list of the closest matches, right? So maybe on previous RFPs, the questions were asked slightly differently. So you might get a 98% match, a 94% match, a 91% match. And it would be up to you to kind of look through how that question was answered, in the past. And maybe it's the same answer. Like the question is close enough so that you can copy over the same answer. But maybe you need to tweak it slightly, or maybe the question is different enough where you just have to create a new answer. What we're trying to do here is so you'll be able to see the 7 or the 8 closest matches that you've asked for, but it still requires you to look at the answer to see whether that's a good enough answer. And then you can you can save it as a new question answer pair for future reference.
And as Gordon was just talking, I would like to just show with a simple example that he just mentioned. So I just tried to ask a simple question, how many rules are there in decisions? And it just gave me the response. But In case if this was an RFP, you can just have the list of questions being answered, and then you can have a button which would just give you, okay, I like this answer, but I would also like to see the closest matches. Here is the closest matches that you get. You can confine it to 3, you can confine it to n number as Gordon just mentioned, copy it from here, and then maybe like if you want to edit that answer inside the RFP, you can just do that in live.
We have a couple more questions. Decisions does not have a limit on users. So please feel free to reach out, for a demo or to our sales organization to ask, if you have more questions about that. And then Decisions is SOC 2 Type 2 compliant. So we are very secure about data security, and we keep everybody's company's confidential data. And we're SOC 2 Type 2 PCI GDPR compliant. So we do actually really maintain data security. We have a data security team internally, which helps us keep compliant with that.
All right. Any additional questions? Again, I just, in no case, in no world would you just feed a new RFP questions, hit generate, and send it back without, reviewing and looking. And that's the whole idea here, is that we want to create an environment that enables the RFP user to more quickly answer those questions in a better way. If you have to answer the same question 3 weeks apart every 3 weeks, you're always going to answer it slightly differently. It's time consuming. And if you answer it very well once, you want to save it in a way that you can use that answer again. And these AI tools and these models, this technology around embedding and vectorizing, just makes saving and retrieving data like this, like we've shown you, it's just a new ball game. Okay, here's a question: Do we generate the embeddings for the source material by dividing them into sentences or paragraphs? So yes, we're taking the entire question. We can also take the entire answer and create embeddings for each of those with the large language model technology, and then save it in the vector database, then search the vector database. But as I mentioned too, we also save the exact text as metadata. So we're using the vectors to find the closest answers, but then we're returning the metadata that's saved alongside. So there's no hallucination. The model isn't creating the answer. We're finding the closest embedding, but returning the exact text as the metadata. There's a question about the 100% match versus 95% match versus lower. That's kind of trial and error, right? If the question is exact, it'll give you the 100%, but there might be some words that are slightly off, or a different word, in which case, and one word can make a difference in the question, right? So you want to look at the strength of the match and read the answer and say, is that correct? Or is it really a different question that requires a different answer? As we played with this a little bit and tested it over this last week, 95%, 98, we set a floor, because you start to see that if it gets lower than that, it usually is a different question that requires a different answer. But every one of these will be slightly different. In a different use case that we showed in a previous webinar that we did on use cases, we found that down to about 85% or 80%, they were really good answers and solid and close. And then much below 80%, it wasn't accurate. So every use case might end up with a different floor or number that you want to use.
Absolutely, Josie. You can just have a rule running behind the scenes which can just trigger you an alert. It can be an email, it can be a message to the communication channel that you intend to have, if the match percent is less than 95 or X% that you are envisioning.
All right, and someone has asked whether we can connect to a live agent, a live person if needed to perform activities. Absolutely. Decisions were used in a lot of call centers. So the strength of the platform is the workflow, creating work queues, and again, creating an audit trail of what was surfaced, what was saved, what was sent out. And so I think that's the value that we provide. Yes, this new technology is cool, but you need a system around it. You need rules, you need audit, you need to govern, you need governance for all of this. And that's what we provide with the platform. And again, I'll make a pitch. If you'd like to see more and really understand how all this was built, sign up on our website for a demo. We'd be happy to show you the platform, everything else that it can do, and how that relates to AI and these large language models. All right, we're coming right up on the hour. I want to thank you all again for attending today. Please visit us at decisions.com, sign up for a demo, reach out to one of our salespeople, sales@decisions.com. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have, and hope to see you all in 2 weeks' time for our next webinar.